to a community channel and Channel 18 once again. And we're pleased to have Michael Lach, the director of the Harwich Conservation Trust. And Michael has a long list of things he wants to talk about today. So I think he wants to talk about the vernal pools. Is that where we're going to start?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Paul. Well, it's been a long winter, and you know, slowly, slowly transitioning to spring. But many of you have heard the spring peepers and sometimes wood frogs. Well, spring peepers, those small little tree frogs we hear this time of year, can be a great indicator of a potential vernal pool. And a vernal pool is a very sensitive and vulnerable habitat type that really tends to fill with groundwater as the groundwater level rises throughout the winter from so much precipitation we had. We had a decent amount of snow and rain compared to years prior. Well, those little depressions in the landscape fill with water, and for the most part, they're temporarily full of that water through the spring and maybe early part of the summer. And then what they provide is a unique opportunity for certain species, such as wood frog and spotted salamander, a chance to migrate to them and breed. And that's been happening over the past few weeks. We're going to see some map shortly that shows the location of a vernal pool that we've had our eye on for vernal pool certification potential. You see all the green there. Let's orient ourselves. Bank Street is really the road running down near the center of this map, and on the left you'll see some green pieces of an open space puzzle that's been forming over the years. Those represent lands not only owned by the town, but some parcels recently donated by some folks, Richard Tigner and Jennifer Smith, on the west side of Bank Street. They donated those lands to Harwich Conservation Trust. Well, on the east side of Bank Street, bordering Lover's Lane there, that runs off diagonally to the right on your map, there's some property donated by the Coleman family many moons ago to the Harwich Conservation Trust. And in the center of your map, noted by those red labels, are a series of 5 parcels just behind Bank Street, all of which those parcels border Gristmill Lane. They include wooded upland and red maple wetland and, turns out, a vernal pool, especially the dot in the parcel that's on the southerly end of that five parcel corridor now that's been created thanks to donations of land from Andrea Aldravandi in memory of her mother, Marcia Iddles, as well as the 3 parcels on the northerly part of that corridor. Stephen Backus donated those 3 to the trust. Well, just so happens that that vernal pool and that property does play host to spotted salamander. You're going to see an image shortly of that. That's a pen and ink drawing, actually by my wife, Rebecca, of a spotted salamander. You know, these creatures really reside in the wooded upland for the majority of the year. And then on a dark, stormy, rainy, warming night in the spring, they wriggle down into these vernal pools and lay their eggs. And it's called a congress of salamanders. And then when they finish laying their eggs, there's an egg mass right there of spotted salamander. Kind of pretty in its own way, isn't it? Almost glows there. That's actually underwater, that egg mass. And just maybe, 8 to 10 inches deep, that pool. So after the salamanders finish their egg laying, they wriggle back up into the surrounding woodland, sometimes several hundred feet away from the wetland, so you can see why it's important to preserve the upland around these pools. They wait till the next spring to start their breeding cycle again. Well, meanwhile, in the spring, these eggs are maturing, and little salamander larvae hatch out and eat a number of different, invertebrates, bugs in the vernal pool. And they mature, and those salamander larvae that aren't eaten by other wildlife mature and then crawl out of the pool and make their way up into the upland. And there were several egg clusters, egg masses found in that pool right off Gristmill Lane. So it's an active vernal pool, and thanks to the donation of land by those different people I mentioned, that vernal pool is now protected in the salamanders that use it. So it's a neat story. I'll just mention this. Before Harwich Conservation Trust began its vernal pool identification certification program.
About 10 years ago.
Yeah, close, about 7 years ago. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. There were only 5 pools certified across Harwich. Well, since Harwich Conservation Trust volunteers have been working on certifying pools, now there's 42.
Wow.
And this pool will make 43. And that's the most pools certified anywhere on the lower to outer Cape. All the way from here to Provincetown, that's the most per town that's been certified. So hats off to our volunteers. They really make our conservation world go round. And the salamanders like it too.
Who the salamanders prey for?
Well,
Birds?
if they're caught out in the open, and then perhaps on some of those stormy nights, if there's a raccoon about foraging, you know, I've gone out on some of those dark, rainy nights looking for the salamanders actually making their way down to pools, and I've found every now and then a half of a salamander. So it looks like somebody has had a midnight snack. But you know, then again, they wriggle up into the upland, take cover, they burrow in. They're called a mole salamander family because they like to burrow in underneath leaf litter and logs and such. And that's where they reside really for most of the year. So they keep a low profile.
Good idea.
Yeah. So it's pretty neat.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now, the
Coldbrook, yeah, coming up.
that?
Things are really, you know, moving along with Coldbrook. Remember the dam removal recently?
Right.
That helped, you know, maintain enhanced water flow and fish passage through there. The trust, along with its partner at the state level, the Division of Ecological Restoration, has been studying ecological restoration ideas for the greater Coldbrook area as it flows through the Trust's largest protected preserve, the 66-acre Bank Street Bogs Nature Preserve in Harwich Port. We've been studying and gathering baseline data for about 4 years. You can see a picture of some of the dilapidated old cranberry flumes that dot the site. But what we don't want to have happen is these things to get to a point where they continue to degrade such that they impede the water flow and affect habitat. You can see some of the old pipes used, which served their purpose way back in the day for the agriculture that was, you know, once used on the site. But now they're you know, a challenge to water flow, and again, fish passage at some points. So in addition to looking at ways to deal with those stream flow points, we're also looking at increasing habitat diversity and therefore wildlife diversity through a number of different habitat restoration options. We can talk about that in more detail at a future day. I'd love to. We could spend a whole session on that. What I'd like to talk about here is the town's interest in our restoration planning by virtue of an additional benefit to reduce the amount of nitrogen that is already existing in that surface and groundwater flow that flows through that 66-acre area before it reaches Saquatucket Harbor. We all know that, right, we're suffering from a wastewater pollution problem across the town in different marine watersheds. And the town, of course, would like to study ways to reduce the amount of nitrogen that's making its way to the harbors in particular, and other areas like Pleasant Bay or Herring River, but in this case, Saquatucket Harbor. And if we can reduce the amount of nitrogen before it gets to the harbor, then we reduce the amount of money that taxpayers have to spend on sewering across town in the years to come. So Article 29 on the Monday, May 5th annual town meeting warrant will help fund the town's nitrogen reduction feasibility study for our Coldbrook Restoration project. So it's another unique partnership opportunity between the town and Harwich Conservation Trust. So Article 29, you know, we support that article put forth by the town, and hope people will vote yes. We think it's an interesting opportunity to explore, again, potential for the town to reduce its wastewater costs by reducing the amount of nitrogen. You see a map of the area here. That's the full 66 acres owned by the trust, and Coldbrook flows through it. The little rectangles of squares you see throughout are those different choke points where the flumes are right now, or potential choke points. But you know, the feasibility study in that Article 29 put forward by the town will look at, again, the potential nitrogen reduction and therefore cost savings for you know, preventing the need for additional wastewater infrastructure for helping to reduce the pollution in Saquatucket Harbor.
How does that affect our sewerage bill?
Well, that's the idea, that the water management quality task force, which is a town entity, is very interested in analyzing the potential taxpayer wastewater cost reduction based on this feasibility study in Article 29.
So we pay for...
It's a $50,000 article. It's part of the town's interest in a $100,000 study. I think they're going to ask for another $50,000 at a future town meeting. But they want to get this study launched soon, so that's why they're asking the voters to consider this.
Now, what are they going to study?
They're going to look at how much nitrogen is in the groundwater and surface flow now.
Yeah.
They're going to study ways in which our ecological restoration project may provide an additional nitrogen reduction benefit.
Okay.
And then I believe, you know, some of the article, you know, may or may not focus on, you know, post-restoration monitoring. But I'm not sure on that.
How are we going to reduce the nitrogen?
Well, the wetland plants in the system are already removing a certain amount of nitrogen, right, naturally. So with our different restoration planning options, you know, maybe we'll create more wetland in certain areas. Maybe there will be a longer meander of the stream in others as we restore the stream flow. It may create even more opportunities for nitrogen reduction. So they're looking at those opportunities through this feasibility study.
So we next want to get into the town meeting, right?
Well, that's on Monday night.
Yes.
But stay tuned. There's more. I also might mention the town selectmen have been working very hard to bring before town meeting voters, again in the annual town meeting, Article 60. So that might show up Monday, but it might get bumped to Tuesday, being Article 60. The proposed acquisition of the Downey property, that 2.2 acres, right on Route 28, in the Saquatucket Harbor Marina. It's an eyesore now with those old buildings and the former gas station predating those buildings.
Is that where that pizza place is?
Yeah, that's right. That's where they used to be. They got a nice new shop further west. Right. Town's been working on this, the selectmen in particular, a long time, and they have this vision along with the harbor master and the waterways committee of improving vehicle and parking access by virtue of purchasing this property in the westerly portion, and then on the easterly portion, helping to bring back some of the stream and wetland characteristics of the property. And so the town's real estate and open space committee is supporting that property purchase under those assumptions, and so is Harwich Conservation Trust. You know, it's a rare opportunity. It's supposedly on the warrant for $825,000, so could require an override. But you know, this is a long-term goal of many in town to enhance one of the jewels and access to one of the jewels, and that is that waterfront access through Saquatucket Harbor, which is in itself an economic engine. And of course, the stream flowing in and the wetlands to the east are very important natural resources. So could be a great opportunity, and you know, hopefully voters will vote yes on Article 60. Yeah. But you were talking about the other article coming up for May 6th special town meeting, right? Which is within the annual town meeting on May 6th.
That's right.
Article 4 in the May 6th special town meeting, right? May 6th, Tuesday, deals with the Island Pond purchase.
That's
right? This is 2 acres at the eastern gateway of the Island Pond Conservation Lands, right off Weston Woods Road. This is a great map. So you